Hello, everyone. My name is Adam Schwend, and I am here with State Representative Suzanne Weber for our second one of these podcasts slash videos yet to be named. I was talking with some folks, and we thought about calling it From the District, and then we realized it was a little too much like the Hunger Games. But then we thought, well, maybe we should.
You're right.
Maybe we should, because the Hunger Games seems like a really reasonable comparison to the legislature sometimes. Yeah. How are you, Representative?
Well, I'm really well. Thank you. It's not raining today, and I always like those kinds of days. We had a couple of really nice days during the week, and people are starting to get outside and start to create some of that energy that is surrounding gardening and doing all the good things they do when the weather's good and the daffodils are blooming. What could be better?
You know, it's really nice. I usually go out to Salem once a week, and I was driving from my home in Tillamook to Salem on Tuesday, and boy, it just looked like somebody had come in with a giant machete and taken out every tree in vision. And so it's so nice to see the sun shining, some nice weather out. Even if it's still a little cool, I still have the fireplace going. So,
and yes, the cherry trees in Salem were severely damaged.
It's so sad.
It is really sad. And there were several large trees around the Capitol also that came down that you wouldn't think would have come down in this kind of weather. But the devastation to the trees, especially in the valley and on the way to the valley, is pretty amazing.
And we do have quite a number of folks in our district here that commute to the valley for work. So while we didn't get the brunt of the weather here, it still affected a lot of people in this district. So it's sure nice to see things better.
It did. And, you know, once again, this community is an outstanding community to bring aid to others. And, you know, we had PUD guys from Tillamook that were in the valley for over a week and, you know, working around the clock to make sure that the folks in the valley had electricity. Their giving of their time and their families' understanding of it is exemplary.
Absolutely. We are very fortunate here in the southern part of your district to be serviced by Tillamook PUD. I've got a lot of friends who work there, and they are just some amazing service-minded people. So
yes,
thank you to the PUD folks.
And my nephew that works in just outside of this district in the north end, he was also out there busy doing this and didn't come home for several days. Mm-hmm. And so it's our public utilities folks all over that really stepped up to be able to help the people in the valley.
Awesome. Well, the big news this week was the state revenue forecast came out, and I think it shocked a lot of people. I don't think anybody thought it was going to look this good.
Well, you know, we were told for weeks, you know, gloom and doom was coming down the tube, and that we weren't going to have that revenue to depend on, you know, in the next biennium for our budget. And so we were, you know, looking scantily at lots and lots of things. Well, the budget, the revenue forecast is good, but that doesn't mean everything is good. And it doesn't mean that we don't have to be really mindful of how we decide we're going to spend the money we have. A lot of the reason we have a lot of that money and ended up as we are is because of the federal money that came into the state. And we have a lot of small businesses that, in spite of the revenue that the state has, are in dire straits. They're hurting. And so we have to be really mindful, especially if tax increases come forward, that we're not going to put that burden back on our small businesses and our restaurants. We can't do that. That's our livelihood. That's how our people exist. That's how our service workers continue to have jobs throughout the year. And so I really feel that it's a time to be happy. We have that amount of money that we have to look forward to, but we need to be careful on how we look at spending because of our small businesses.
It's a real slap in the face, I think, to a lot of our small businesses, our working families, who they're happy that the state has money in its coffers, but their bank accounts look a lot different.
Right.
And so it's we've got a long history of coming up with some really great ideas when money is strong.
Yes.
Tossing a bunch of money at it, seeing those ideas fail, and then having to bail them out when times are
Well,
not so strong.
we have to look at more creative solutions for some of the problems that we have. And, we have to look at the bills that are coming up as to what they're going to cost into the future. And that's something we don't always do well, is that forecasting how much things are going to cost. For example, we passed 110, in the last election. Okay, what is that going to ultimately do in the future? It's going to help people, yes, but what is it going to do to our small businesses and our small producers? We have to look at that. We have to do a better job of that.
Yeah.
So,
like I said, we often find I think Oregon is really good with coming up with really intriguing ideas. But your colleague Senator Johnson says it often on her podcast, and if any folks have not heard her podcast, really encourage you to listen to it.
Yes.
Speak with State Senator Betsy Johnson. She does one every week. I've heard her say many times, we are great with coming up with great ideas, and we're really bad at executing them. Yes. I think the idea of making sure that we're focusing on the basic services that all Oregonians need and have come to expect from their state, focus on those, and put the brakes on any new idea of spending, a new idea of tax increases, while the economy is still fragile, and focusing just on those basic services. So
yes,
but so not
we have had some success though this week in helping people.
We was about to say that we've had some great feel-good stories, I think, about, in this job, it's really easy to get bogged down with the minutia and frustrated and thinking you're helping people in practice. But you've been able to help a few people just this week with some actual, I think you genuinely saved some people's lives, which is go ahead and tell us about those.
14 weeks of unemployment. Think of what that does to the average family. Yes, we're encouraged to have how many months of savings so that we can get through these hard times. But we've had many more hard times than the basic 3 months. And to be 14 weeks without any kind of money, that not only hurts the family that's living there, the person who is earning the wage, but it's also the landlord and that doesn't get paid. There's lots of implications when this doesn't happen. And it's unfortunate that we still have people that are that many weeks without any kind of a benefit.
Right. So Representative, just to let people know what you're talking about specifically, your office received an inquiry from a relative of a gentleman who had not seen a penny of unemployment that he was owed for nearly 4 months. He was at his wit's end. He was not going to be able to pay for his food or support his family or pay his mortgage. And he reached out to your office, and you were able to do something about it.
Yes.
So
I really appreciate the fact that people take the time to reach out. And this week we did, because I'm sure it's because of the storm and things. When we got to our office in Salem, we discovered that there were several calls that we were not aware of that came in. And so right away, got to working on those. So, if that happens, that you don't receive an answer right away, know that sometimes it's because the answering machine doesn't forward the calls to us so that we don't get them. And I really want to apologize to the folks. I'm working through the list right now. And gratefully, there was another gentleman that we were able to help in the process of this, because sometimes it's not only what I can do or what my staff can do, it's sometimes who we know and who we can reach out to. And in this particular instance, a lady needed her medicine, and it was coming from out of the country, and not from Canada, but from England, because it's a very specialized medicine for a condition she has, and they couldn't get through customs. And so because of the relationship we have with our federal leaders, I was able to reach out to Kirk Schrader's office, and he was gracious enough to put someone to work on that. And I have not heard if the medication has gotten through customs and has arrived yet, but I know that they were very positive about reaching out, getting the forms, moving ahead with this. So I expect that these folks are going to be able to see that it's life-saving medicine for that lady who lives in our district soon.
Well, and like I said, it's really easy to get frustrated in your job and in the work that your staff does. It's really easy to get frustrated that we're not actually making a difference in people's lives because we just get bogged down in paperwork and emails calling us idiots. And it's really great to actually tangibly help people. And you were able to have a couple examples of that. And to come back on what you were saying about our phone lines, we're not in the office. We spend very brief amounts of times there. So I'd like to give people the district number. And this district number usually just goes to a voicemail, but we do get the voicemails almost immediately. The state's voicemail forwarding system has been kind of hinky. It has not worked well. We'll come to the office on Tuesday and find that we have 30 voicemails that we didn't know existed. Yes. So let me give the number for the in-district contacts, which will be much easier to get to us. That's 503-300-4493. Again, 503-300-4493. If you need help with your unemployment insurance, or if you need help with any sort of issues that you are dealing with, as Representative said, we may not be able to help, but we definitely can point you in the right direction.
Somebody.
Or if you have input that you don't want to put in an email, you actually want to actually have a conversation with someone, you can go ahead and call that number. And if the representative doesn't get a hold of you, certainly one of the staff will. So please do keep that in mind.
And we've also been able to help some people to be able to get their COVID vaccination too. And I think that was very positive, because, people were calling or emailing and leaving all of their information, and then they weren't hearing back. And then they, were getting anxious about being over that 75 number and not being able to get that. And so we have been able to help with that also.
And that's a good thing to point out because as folks have probably heard, here soon we're going to be expanding the number of people who are going to have access to the COVID vaccines. And so there's probably going to be more chaos in dealing with that system. So if you are eligible and you are having a hard time actually getting signed up, please do not feel bad about contacting Representative Weber's office so that we can at least raise your case up to make sure that you're scheduled.
Right.
So
and remember, there's also availability at Safeway. I have known several people recently who had their vaccinations at Safeway. So there are other avenues besides our health departments.
Yes. There are options in it, and if you are concerned and not sure how to do it, please do get a hold of the office. At least we will point you in the right direction.
We will.
The first month or so of the session, we've kind of had some softball bills coming through that really weren't very contentious, weren't very controversial. That seems to be over.
Yes, it does.
We do have some bills ramping up, but we did have some bills come through through the committees that you sit on. So those committees are the Housing Committee, the House Education Committee, which you are the vice chair of, and the House Early Childhood Committee. So there were 3 bills in particular that really caught your eye that we wanted to talk about. Let's first talk about on the Housing Committee, HB 2006. And just letting me pull that up really quickly through OLIS. And if you are ever wanting to take a look at these, you can just go to OLIS olis.oregonlegislature.gov. That's OLIS for Oregon Legislative Information System. olis.oregonlegislature.gov. And there, what you can do is you can watch the committee hearings, see when things are scheduled, submit testimony in writing, or schedule yourself to testify via Microsoft Teams, which is a Zoom sort of thing, or via the phone. So encourage you to go there. But so
yes, and one thing I'd like to add too is that last week on Senator Johnson's podcast, she and her technology person got together and they put together a real good tutorial that is very easy to understand and is very available. And it tells you exactly how to get into that system. And so if you have an opportunity, she has a wonderful tutorial on OLIS and how to find what you need to find in there.
Excellent. So HB 2006 is the first bill that really caught your eye, which has to do with citing emergency shelters.
Yes.
So we'll go ahead and talk about what that bill is and what your concerns are about that as well.
Well, I'm concerned. Well, first of all, I have to tell you that I'm very concerned with the amount of homeless people we have living here in our rural area. And I'm concerned with the weather and the conditions that we have right now outside and where they're living. And the fact that they do need emergency shelters. I am, however, concerned about how the bill addresses, people in parking lots, people along the streets, designated areas. I am concerned about how this is going to, how our police departments and our sheriffs are going to have to deal with some of these things, setting up tents and camps in parking lots and things like that. What I would like people to do is to use this OLIS system and go in and read that bill and read all of the things that impacts. And it's quite long, but I think that you would learn a lot about how that will impact our city governments, impact our county governments, impact our law enforcement and their ability to continue to keep order and to protect people's properties.
I think the thing that concerned me the most is when we saw the bill and when it was about to go into its public hearing, we reached out to a number of stakeholders who this is what they do. They live and breathe helping houseless, homeless people, and they hadn't even heard that this bill was going to come forward again. So they hadn't been consulted. And when they read the bill and got a hold of us, they were very concerned about what they saw.
Yes.
So,
and we have to look at the statistics of how this is an increasingly evident problem in the state. It's increased 37% within the state of Oregon just since 2010. Right now, if we were to house all of the homeless folks for a night, we would need 5,800 beds currently. And in Salem, every year, 30 people die on the street. So we have, this, and bring that down to Tillamook, bring that down to Astoria. We're experiencing the same things. So we've got to also consider the land use processes that are involved in this. And we've got to look across the whole spectrum of age. We not only have elderly people, but we have children who are homeless.
Right. And
these things need to be addressed. It's just that maybe this isn't exactly the way we need to approach it.
Right. And I will say in that hearing, this bill is sponsored by Speaker Tina Kotek. And Speaker Kotek did say that she is willing to have conversations on how to make the bill better.
Yes.
Which I think, I hope we can take her at her word on that. So I think that really emphasizes OLIS again, and certainly reach out to you and give opinions on the bill to you, but also not only to Representative Weber, but if you have input on this, reach out and to Speaker Kotek's office as well, because this is her bill, and she has brought this bill forward a number of times and it's never gotten through. So I think this is a pretty big priority for her. So to say that it's just going to go away, it probably won't. The focus really is how can we make the bill better and more palatable, especially for rural Northwest Oregon.
Yes.
Gosh, 5,200, that's the size of the city of Tillamook. We would need to house the entire city of Tillamook. Gosh, so that's House Bill 2006. Do you have any other comments on that before we go into some of these others that you're concerned about?
No, but pay attention, especially city leaders. Pay attention to that bill, please.
Yes, I think especially those of you who are city electeds or city staff, this is going to affect you in a very large way. So I hope to see some testimony from local leaders here in House District 32. Moving on to the Education Committee, to some bills that you're actually pretty excited about. House Bill 2919 and House Bill 2542, dealing with fees around classes.
The latter part of the week, we focused on House bills that were basically all focused on higher education. And one of them is that when kids go to pay their tuition and register for their classes, they don't always know until the very last minute the cost of the textbooks that they're going to need for the classes. And I don't know if any of you remember in going to school, taking higher education classes, that the cost of these textbooks is exorbitant. And so kids and students are building tuition and living expenses into their budgets, and many of them are paying for their college experience themselves. Then they get to pay for this, and they find out that for one textbook, they will have to pay maybe $350. And then in order to be able to turn in their handbook or their homework, they're going to have to pay another fee in order to get into the system to be able to turn in their homework. So they could buy a text somewhere else for less money online, but they couldn't turn their homework in if they hadn't paid this fee along with that textbook. And so they're stymied, and one young lady was saying that her fees every term are over $900. How can that be? And how can they, especially if they're putting themselves through college, how can they absorb that? That's an awful lot. So what gives? Okay, if they're not living on campus, their rent gives. The fact that they don't have food. I was surprised to hear the number of students who testified that said they just didn't eat
Yeah.
because they knew they had to pay those fees. Well, the two bills that have come forward that you mentioned, 2542 and 2919, address those fees, and they address the cost of those textbooks, and letting students know at the time that they register how much those things are going to cost. And as far as fees, there were student organizations that testified on this particular bill that they couldn't get information out of the universities as to what these fees were being spent on. And so there has to be transparency in where that money is going so that the student knows what they're paying for. Some of the fees were levied a long time ago, and people still have no idea where that money is going, how they have ever seen the benefit of it. And so I think these are two really important pieces of legislation for our students at the university level, so that they know what they're going to have to be spending, and they, going forward, they can plan for that. Because several of them said, if we knew that in the beginning, we could plan for it. We could have, asked our parents to be able to help us with this. We could have increased the amount of our school loans. But without knowing that, they just have to suffer through the term. And so I feel very passionate about those and taking care of this situation.
What one of the things I was really excited about looking at these bills and looking at the people who were testifying were the bookstores and the book publishers. They were on board with this because you had the writers of the bill, the sponsors of the bill, working with legislators of both parties and the industry to come up with a solution to a problem that everybody acknowledged. And to me, this was an example of good policy being made in a good way, bringing everybody to the table, addressing everybody's concern, so that at the end, you have a bill that not only both political parties can get behind, but that the industry can get behind to try to make a better experience for everybody. I think it was a really shining example of good policy making.
Right.
So excellent job. It had a public hearing. We hope it'll have a work session. For those folks who don't know the difference, a public hearing is an opportunity for the public and for advocates and lobbyists to come in and make their case. The work session is when the legislators actually debate the bills in committee and then vote whether to pass them or whether to reject them.
Well, and you pass them on because you're not done. Just because you pass them on doesn't mean that they're going to be voted on favorably in the end. So
sometimes
it's a multi-step approach.
Right. And sometimes there's a subsequent referral to another committee. If that's the case, it then goes to another committee for a hearing and for a vote if that happens. If not, then it would go to the House floor for an initial vote eventually, when we ever get to do that. So those are some great bills. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask you, are there any last minute things about those bills you want to just wrap up on?
Anything that is going to cost the state money or is going to be a budgetary item will then go from the committee to the Ways and Means. Mm-hmm. And Ways and Means then is the committee that's going to say, okay, we can vote on this. We know where the money's going to come from.
And one of the chairs of that committee is our own state senator, Betsy Johnson. So we're very fortunate in House District 32 to have one of the budget writers representing us in the Senate. So that is, I don't think folks really understand how fortunate we are to have that. It might seem like inside baseball palace intrigue, but it really makes a big difference for us to have one of the budget writers representing us. It's a big deal. Right. So we get a lot of testimony. We get a lot of emails from folks.
We do.
Literally thousands upon thousands of emails every week. We want you to be able to get your testimony in. So Again, follow those bills at OLIS, OLIS, .oregonlegislature.gov. Submit your testimony. There's a way to submit your testimony there. And if you
Yeah.
want to testify in person, and by in person, I mean virtually or over the phone, you can do that, or you can submit testimony there just via email.
Can I add
about those
something here?
emails, though?
Can I talk about those emails?
Yes.
You know, sometimes, like, there are some issues that will get, there was a Senate bill, and please remember that I'm in the legislature, that one day we got 1,400 form letters concerning that bill. Well, yes, we understand that that is important to you, and that is a form letter that it has been suggested that you send to us. You know, I appreciate those. However, I appreciate more hearing your story and how it will affect you personally. So please take the time. If you are passionate about something, if you feel that I need to be aware of something, to make those personalized emails, because that has so much more meaning.
Right. And I will say we have one staff member going handling all these emails. When they're form emails, please don't be surprised if you get a form email back. So that,
yes,
because with 1,500 form emails, it's so difficult. However, if you do send a personalized email, the representative will send you a personalized email back. Please give her some time. Like I said, there's so many that come in. We may not get to it in 5-10 minutes or even a couple of days, but we will respond. If for some reason we don't, it is absolutely out of a mistake. We do not ignore.
Right.
We do not ignore people who may not agree with Representative Weber's stances. We always get a response back, but those personalized responses come from personalized emails. Otherwise, there would just be no end.
And I wanted to also add that please remember that up until the 8th of March, we are only going to be in Salem in session one day a week, and that's on Tuesdays. But after that second week of March, we're going to be there 2 days a week. We're going to be there Mondays and Tuesdays in session. And we'll still be having all of our meetings virtually, but we will be in the Capitol on those days, and we will be in the special session on those 2 days, because we're going to be starting to move forward with some of the bills that we have referred on. Not many that we referred on, but yes, we are going to start addressing those.
Right. I think there's maybe been, just in the committees that you've been on, I think you've had work session and votes on what, 4 bills?
3.
Keeping in mind there's been 4,000 introduced bills.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Which is a little frustrating given the circumstances, but it is what it is. And I know you were really wanting to limit this session to the basics, and then just getting done what we need to get done, and then getting out. And then focusing the other policy stuff later on when the people can actually be in the building. But unfortunately, that's not your choice. You don't get to make that decision. That is a decision of the presiding officers, of which you are not one. And
right. One other thing that we need to discuss, and people need to really be paying attention to, is we are coming into a session with redistricting. Mm-hmm. And so the boundaries of our area may change. And there are going to be some public hearings on that. And we've already posted when those public hearings are going to be that apply to our district.
Yes, they are on your Facebook page. If you go to Representative Weber's Facebook page, you will be able to see when those meetings are, and they are virtual, so you'll be able to attend them, any of them. But there are some that are specific to our area. Those meetings will be happening divided up by current congressional districts. So when you see that Tillamook County, for example, is included in with Salem and Clackamas County, and then Clatsop County is included with Multnomah County, that is because that's how congressional districts are drawn, and that will change, obviously.
Right. And that's how we're going to make a difference. If we don't want Tillamook divided down the middle, or part of Clatsop County carved off, or, we have part of Washington. We have only one household in Yamhill County.
Which I keep loving to be able to tell people that you got 100% of the vote
Yes.
in Yamhill County.
Yes.
One guy who did it. We got to find out who that is and send him a thank you card.
Yes.
So yes, do keep your eye on redistricting. That is happening. That is a very, very big deal to make sure that our area, rural Northwest Oregon, continues to be represented. Representative, we're out of time just about.
Yeah.
So do you have any last thoughts, words that you want to impart?
No, I think I'm fine. I think I've covered everything that I wanted to cover. I just want to remind you to pay attention to what the legislature that I am representing is doing.
Excellent. And if you would like to contact Representative Weber, you can go to www.representativeweber.com. That is Weber with one B, Weber, representativeweber.com. And again, the phone number, if you want to reach Representative Weber, is 503-300-4493. Representative, thank you very much. Great chatting with you as always. And thank you very much, everyone. We'll talk to you again soon.
Bye.